Welcome once again to the Cow Report, and of course I'm your host. And tonight's program is being brought to you live by the fine folks at the Flavin Company, and as usual, with me is my rusty, trusty sidekick, Fred, the true Stafford. Welcome to the show, Fred.
Yes, Chuck Lee, and welcome yourself.
And as usual, you're so original, Fred. Well, we're glad to have you here, Fred. You know, how long has it been we've been doing this show now? What, about 20?
Too long.
20, 25 years, something like that?
No. Not
Pretty-
even 10 years.
How quick time flies.
Yes.
Well, you know, Fred, on this date in history, we like to find out what you know.
Well,
Because sometimes it's not who you know, it's what you know.
yeah.
So on this date, September 25th, you ready?
Yeah.
1789. Of course, Fred, this is coming from the beautiful downtown L.E. Phillips Memorial Library and Mausoleum. They've changed it now. It used to be taco stand, but we had to move that out because, you know, this whole operation's moving. Of course, you've been down here giving tours now for what?
I haven't given
20?
any tours, and that's a figment of your imagination.
20, 25 years, Fred has been giving tours here in the library.
I have not given any tours.
Studio. Are you going to move to the new building?
Well, I might stay here.
Now, I hear common man's not going to move because he's afraid of elevators or something. So you might be able to take over his time slot or something. All right, Freddie. Thomas Edison said this. We'll read this before we get into quizzing Fred's intelligence. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up.
Yes.
And Edison, you know, he tried and tried and tried to make that light bulb.
Well,
I think he had something like 10.
succeeded.
He had 10,000 failures on some of his inventions before he finally came upon the right filament that would work, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're enjoying what he labored over and dreamt over and
Yes.
woke up in the middle of the night and pulled his hair and probably aged him beyond repair, just trying to
Yes.
figure out that light bulb. But he said if he'd have gave up, we'd still be using candles.
Yes. Or a kerosene lamp.
All right, Freddie. So,
Yes.
on this date, September 25th, 1789, under strong urging from Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, the U.S. Congress adopts the first 12 amendments to the new Constitution. 10 of these amendments were subsequently ratified and are now known as the Bill of Rights.
Yes.
Out of these 12 amendments, what were those 10 amendments named?
I know what you're talking about. Bill of Rights.
That's right. Bill of Rights. I'll tell you, you got to get up pretty early in the morning to stump Fred the True Stafford. That's all I know. Okay, Fred, now what's that poster down there in front of you? You want to tell the viewers what that's all about?
Well, that poster is about pornography. Pornography pollutes mind, body, and soul, and shows a young gal wearing her wrap ribbon, which is to celebrate the month of October. The governor has declared it to be Decency Month.
Governor of Wisconsin?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, that's good, Fred. And so you've got, now what if somebody wants to get a hold of that for their church bulletin board or for the schools or maybe some of the dirty bookstores like to get a hold of one or two of those?
I don't think we'll give them any of them. But they're available from the media. I will have a few for people that want them. 10 cents a piece plus postage.
Well, that's not bad, Fred. Now, the whole month of October
is Decency Month.
and that kind of coincides and maybe hopefully cancels out Gay and Lesbian Month in the public school system.
Yes, that's true.
So maybe they'll put up some of these posters and for the nationwide protest that the parents are going to be pulling their kids out of the public school system on the dates that the sodomites come in there and try and teach the kids on safe sodomy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, maybe we get
Safe
some.
sodomy is no sodomy.
Well, you can say that again, Freddie. All right,
Yes.
Fred. You know that the national fence. They're going to finally build a fence down there, and along parts of that overrun border we have down there. That used to be called the Mexican-American border. Now it's a no man's land. You can get shot or killed or stabbed or
Especially in
robbed or whatever down in there on that border.
Certain few miles along the New Mexico Mexican border.
Well, it's a no man's land because the hillbilly socialists from Arkansas that they call the president has pretty much let that be overrun by Mexicans. Thousands a night come across. We have a handful of agents down there, the ones that aren't on the take. In other words, they're not crooked and getting drug money and helping smuggle herself. They're corralling as many as they can and sending them back, but sometimes they'll corral one at 7 p.m. and corral them again at midnight, coming back across again after they've taken them back.
Mm.
So it's a fake, a phony, and a fraud, and it's a sham, Fred. A liberal Democrat, Barbara Jordan, a black congresswoman who ended up in a wheelchair. She headed up a commission, and her as a liberal came to the same conclusion. We got to shut down the border. We can't take care of the poor people we already got without letting in several million more a year.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if you agree with that or not.
I agree with that.
Okay. Well, the national fence. The House Judiciary Committee endorsed building a 14-mile triple fence along the Mexican border in California and doubling the Border Patrol to deter illegal immigrants. The action came on the first day of the marathon hearings on passage of the Omnibus Immigration Reform Bill. The measure contains popular tough new curbs on illegal immigration and more controversial plans to cut legal immigration by 1/3 and create a worker identification system. Both illegal and legal immigration are broken and need to be fixed, said Representative Lamar Smith from Texas, chairman of the subcommittee on immigration. And speaking of it being broke, Fred, it is definitely broken. As a matter of fact, the immigration system is so broke that there's over 1 million illegal aliens in one county, Los Angeles County itself. In one county, in one state of 50 in this nation, one county has over 1 million illegal aliens in the county. It's so bad there that the LA health system collapsed last week. President Clinton had to come in and rescue it with a $364 million federal bailout Friday of the Los Angeles County teetering health care system. And the only reason they pumped the money in is because it saved thousands of jobs on one side, and it's a symbiotic relationship, Fred. You got millions of illegal aliens, or hundreds of thousands, on one side, and you've got thousands of people that are living off, that are working for the system, that are feeding off the illegal aliens. The illegal aliens are feeding off the workers for the federal, state, and local government. So it's a relationship there that nobody wants to collapse, including the president, because it's votes for him. And so what do? They pumped in almost $400 billion to put it back, 400 million to put it back above water. That's only a temporary bailout, Fred.
Well, that's why we got to elect Pat Buchanan, who is not only going to build a fence there, but he's going to send those people back.
Well, the Florida healthcare system, education system, everything there is pushed to the limit. It's almost bankrupt. The Texas system is almost bankrupt. Arizona's is going under. California, county by county, is going under. We had a whole county collapse a few months ago. Now we got the Los Angeles County health system collapse. Illinois is under a heavy weight. New York State's under a heavy weight. Minnesota has well over 50,000 illegal aliens just in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Everybody's looking the other way. It's cheap labor. Somebody wants a gardener, they can get a gardener for $4.25 an hour. Maybe he can't speak English, maybe his documentation looks a little shady, but what the heck? I'm making $50,000 a year. I can afford to pay a gardener a couple hundred a week to make my yard look nice. Or a maid, you know, somebody to take care of the kids.
Yes.
cheaper to have a maid, even though she can't speak English. And nobody's asking questions. Everybody kind of looks the other way. And I need somebody to take care of my kids so I can go out and work to pay the
Yes,
government at 55.
And you even find people who have nominated for the Supreme Court and other judges and whatnot have been only too eager to hire that type of people.
Well, I know what you mean. It's a shame, Freddie. The nucleus that's propping up this whole system, which is teetering on collapse, the whole government of the United States is bankrupt. The only thing that's keeping it afloat now is last week's paychecks where they took the federal money, taxes out and shipped it off to Washington. That's the only thing that's keeping the whole system from collapsing. Social Security system is busted. Last week's paychecks are keeping you in the Social Security checks, Fred. If my generation sits down and says we're not going to work anymore, the whole system will collapse. There's roughly the baby boomers, the ones that were born in 1946 to 64. They're keeping America afloat right now.
Well,
That's the goose that's laying the golden egg, Fred.
something also that should be corrected, and they don't seem to want to do it in Washington, is some of us who were working during World War II and so forth were not getting the full amount of our Social Security. We have been penalized.
Yeah, there's what do they call it? The notch?
They're not.
Notch babies?
Right. And it's all right. Congress votes themselves raises.
In the middle of the night when nobody's looking.
And they get them. And we don't get anywhere near what we're supposed to, which is only pittance compared to them.
Well, Fred, your pittance is going to be better than what my generation gets, because what have we got behind my generation to pay my Social Security? We got illegal aliens. We got people working for $5 an hour. They're not paying enough into the system to, when that 40, 50, 60 million baby boomers hits that Social Security wall in 16 years, starts retiring, the group coming back after them aren't going to keep it afloat, Fred. That's why you won't hear a congressman say anything about anything after the year 2015. They say, yeah, the Social Security system's safe to live. That's because that's when the baby boomers start hitting retirement age. And they know it's going to collapse. It's in a terrible shape, Freddie.
Well, one thing they should have done a long time ago is the money, the surplus that we have in the Social Security funds should go into a private fund that the federal government doesn't control, because they have already borrowed the surplus for the years that we had surpluses.
Well, Fred, they need to have a graduated system. They need to start it right now for people my age, so they can still put a certain amount into Social Security to keep you guys from all hitting the poorhouse. But on the other hand, they should allow my age and the baby boomers to start putting a portion of our Social Security into private retirement funds, something that's going to generate some money.
So it should be allowed, all funds should go into that, and we would get something back from the investment that we have.
Well, if that money was allowed to have been invested into the mutual funds and things like that, just about every retired person in this country would be millionaires or close to it. They would have a nice little nest egg.
Right.
But all they've got now are IOUs and a lot of cobwebs inside of that great big Social Security safe. All right, Freddie. Now, we've been showing excerpts from the Ames, Iowa caucus. It's one of the big deals of the year as far as the political world in the United States. And we've shown our own inspector get booed solidly for 15 minutes. We've shown, who else we had speak so far? We showed Dole's speech. We showed Alan Keyes give a speech in his tent. Tonight, we're going to show somebody that you're wearing a hat.
Yes. Go, Pat, go.
And we're going to show
Pat Buchanan.
Go, Pat, go. Pat Buchanan's 15 minutes of glory here down at the Ames, Iowa straw poll, in which, well, there was almost 11,000 people voting, Fred, but the auditorium probably could have had anywhere up to 15,000 in it. It's quite a crowd there. So we'll go to that right now, and then after that's done, we'll take calls in the remaining half hour of the show. So So go ahead and start rolling the film there, Roy. Go ahead and roll the film there, Roy. Roy is going to roll the film. Roy Rogers Hoff, of course, his dad named him after Hopalong Catholic many years ago.
The next speaker was my sparring partner 4 years ago in Kansas. And well known for his work as a conservative columnist and co-host of Crossfire. He served on the White House staff under two great Americans, Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan. He is known for his straight, no-nonsense talk. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Pat Buchanan.
but I am looking for a job. And that job is currently held by Bill Clinton, and let me tell you why we're going to take it away from him. The first very first reason, is so that you and I can restore the inalienable right to life to its proper position. God's country. But any party, let me say it clearly and calmly, any party that will turn its back on the silent screams of the innocent unborn is going to lose its heart and lose its soul, and it will die as the Democratic Party is dying today. But because when that crowd comes to the San Diego Convention and comes in to tear the right to life plank out of the Republican platform, it is going to have to come over Pat Buchanan. And they can't do that if you will stand by me for life. Will you stand by me for life? Let me tell you, I pledge to you, if you do that, we will have a pro-life platform, a pro-life ticket. I will be a pro-life president, and my first 5 executive orders will be to repeal the first 5 executive orders of Bill Clinton. In the Buchanan presidency, there will be not one dime for Planned Parenthood, not one dime. When I get into that Oval Office, there will be no more NAFTAs, no more debts, no more surrender of American national sovereignty to the global institutions of the New World Order. Because we're going to start putting our own country and our own people first. What are we doing for our own country, my friends? We are cutting programs for veterans, for the elderly, for the poor, for farmers, and then we're turning around and giving away America's wealth to countries all over the world. Look what happened. Look what happened. Our own leaders regrettably went down to meet with Bill Clinton, and they came back and they said we got to give $50 billion to that corrupt, deceitful government in Mexico so they can pay back the big boys on Wall Street. Chase Manhattan, Citibank, Goldman Sachs. And we are cutting aid to our own people for shipping $12 billion in foreign aid around the world. What are we doing? Sending America's wealth overseas to balance the budget of foreign countries when we can't even balance our own. When I get to that Oval Office, foreign aid ends, there will the state of Iowa for thousands of miles now in the last 5 months. And I've come to see the state and to love its beauty and to understand some of the things going on here as a consequence of decisions in Washington, D.C. I was down in Red Oak, Iowa, and I was being interviewed by a young lady on a small radio station. And she said, "Mr. Buchanan, did you know they're shutting down the Ever-Ready plant and we're losing 300 jobs?" Means the death of Red Oak. I said, "What happened?" She said, "Well, the plant's moving to Singapore. They can get workers for 75 cents an hour." What do you think if American workers compete with people for 75 cents an hour? I know there are people in this audience who came over from the great beef packing company IBP. You came over here, and I read just the other day in the Wall Street Journal that the real incomes of the workers on the floor of IBP is going down 40% in 15 years. Well, the income, the individual running the company is going from 400,000 to 4 million. 1,000% increase. I'm asking you, my friends, as Republicans, what are we doing to the working people of Iowa and America? Look at what is happening at that IBP plant in Storm Lake. Illegal aliens are coming in and taking jobs from half the pay of American workers. They're driving down the wages of those working Iowans, and they're taking their jobs. And that's because of illegal immigration and because of the timidity and cowardice in Washington, men who will not take a stand. Well, let me tell you, when I get to that Oval Office, I intend to build a security fence across our southern border. I will stop the we can send an army halfway around the world to defend the borders of Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia, and South Korea. Why can't the Americans defend our own tears? Look how far, my friends, look how far this new world order has gone. When Iraq, our planes were overflying it, helicopters overflying it. In a friendly fire incident where 2 American helicopters were shot down, 16 young Americans were killed. And the Vice President of the United States issued a formal statement. What did it say? Parents of these young men and women can be proud they died in the service of the United Nations. Didn't take an oath to the United Nations. They took an oath to you and me, to the Constitution, and to the United States. And when I get to the Oval Office, never again will I remember to be sitting around and sitting on the American office of the fight under an American flag. People ask me, "Pat, what is this new world order? Is this just something of your imagination?" Let me tell you. Let me tell you what it is. I had a party before I announced, and a friend came over to my house and he had a copper bracelet on his hand. And I said, "Let me see it." And he took it off and handed it to me. It was a bracelet of an American POW missing in action. And the name was Captain Humbert Versace. Only I knew him as Rocky Versace. He was 15 years old. He was a tough kid who went to school with me. And the Viet Cong, 8 years after he graduated, executed him in the jungle in Vietnam because his fellow policemen had escaped. And then I read last week that the United States is backing the World Bank with a $265 million loan to communist Vietnam. That means Rocky Versace's mother is guaranteeing a loan to the regime to murder her son. That is your new world order. We guarantee loans to communist China where they induce forced abortions when young women have a second child. That is your new world order. So let me say to the globalists and the internationalists in Tokyo, in New York, in Paris, and Geneva, when I raise my hand to take that oath of office, your new world order comes crashing down.
And there you have it, Freddie. And of course, you and I were down there and all that excitement. Of course, he got one of the overwhelming responses of positive responses.
Yes.
You know who spoke right after him got 15 minutes of booing, where he got 15 minutes of applause. Was
Yes.
our own inspector. So it was quite a difference there from one speaker to the next. But you know, he's got quite a chance of pulling this off. But you know, Fred, there's some pretty tough players in that Republican Party, and they start playing pretty rough and tumbly and pretty dirty. And if they smell a Buchanan upset here and he wins a national convention endorsement, there's going to be some cutthroat operations in the background to keep him from doing that, you know.
Yes.
What do you think about it, Fred? You think he can pull it off?
Well, I certainly hope that he can, because he is the hope of our country. And some of those that are running don't have the same feeling that he has for our country and willing to stand up.
You know, he was raised right there in Washington, D.C. He said it used to be a pretty safe town. Now you got to drive through that town with a bulletproof vest on and a bulletproof car just to get through there safely.
Yeah.
It's one of the murder capitals of the United States. Well, Freddie, you heard what he said there. He said he's going to shut down that southern border, and he's going to rescind the first 5 executive orders of Clinton,
Yes.
turn those around, and he's not going to let the abortionists take over the Republican Party.
Right.
And of course, our own inspector is saying the exact opposite. When they get to that national convention, they are going to...
Arnold Specter is only one voice, and he's going to take a pro-choice delegation with him.
Well, I thought we had a call here, Fred. We'll see if it's still on. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, this is Buck.
Whoa. Hello, Buck.
How you doing?
Fine. How are you tonight?
Pretty good.
I heard you went hunting.
Went hunting up north. Helped a buddy gut out a deer. He did bow hunting. Dropped her about 40 yards.
Yeah?
Didn't run very far. But anyway,
Did you cut off a little piece and eat it raw?
Well, we thought about it, but we decided not to. But it ain't a bad idea. So you backing Pat Buchanan?
Well, Freddie sure is having a love affair with him.
How about you?
Well, Pat's got some good ideas. He's the only one out there that's saying...
Don't be giving me a politician's answer. Are you backing him or not?
Well, Alan Keyes is saying a lot of good things, too, but Pat's my...
Well, I'm going behind Alan Keyes.
You are?
He's a man.
Well, Keyes and Buchanan both saying a lot of good things out there.
Yeah. Now, Detroit is upsetting San Francisco tonight. That kind of concerns me because that means Bubba could get reelected.
Oh, is that there one of those barometers of the '96 election?
Kinda.
Huh.
What about that little hand grenade with the haircut? What did he announce tonight?
Who's that?
Perot.
I don't know. I didn't see.
No, he's supposed to make an announcement tonight.
Larry King Live.
Yeah.
Something about a third party or something. I don't know.
Well, he'd probably finance some lukewarm, warmed-over Democrat like that.
Forbes ain't bad. That guy, Malcolm
That former basketball player, what's his name?
Bradley.
Bradley. That's probably who Perot would support.
Well, what about Forbes now? He wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, I'd like to hear some of his views on pro-life issue and on the New World Order. And I think Forbes is an internationalist, though. He talks big because he's got millions, but he'd probably sell this country out at the drop of a hat.
How about Colin Powell?
Colin is a liberal in disguise. He despises Reagan and Bush because he thought they were too conservative and not.
He doesn't care for the religious right either.
And he doesn't hate, but he doesn't like the religious right. He thinks that.
And he also is a pro-choice man.
Whatever happened to Jesse?
Well, he's still in the wings there.
Jesse just put one of the national communist leaders on his payroll, Angela Davis.
Well, I want to wonder what some of those guys' stand is on the hunting season. If they're going to prolong it, or
What do you mean, huh?
they should make it longer.
In Wisconsin?
Yeah,
They want to take the guns away from you guys.
See, there's
they're not.
anarchy in the streets of Los Angeles, Chicago, Washington, D.C., so they're going to come up here and take the farmers' shotguns away, and they figure
Well, they can't. You know why they won't do that?
that'll solve the problem, see.
It's too cold up here. It keeps the riffraff out.
See, there's trouble in Minneapolis. They're having a record year for murder, so they're going to come over to Eau Claire and take the Eau Clarians' guns away.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, that's the way they think.
They get that common man on board, he'll be okay.
They get that screwed up thinking if they take away the guns of the farmers, that'll solve the problems in the inner cities.
Well, the crooks will have the guns anyway then.
Of course, but see, the socialists want it that way because they can control the gangs by throwing money at them and drugs.
Well, we ought to go back to make it mandatory, like down in Georgia. That one county said everybody has to have a gun.
See, the communists and the socialists, they could care less about human lives. The communists in China from 1949 to 1990 killed 100 million Chinese to get where they're at. You think they care less about killing a few more people?
Oh, you left 33 million out in Russia when they starved them on the collectivist farms.
Right. Some of those were Americans from Minnesota and Wisconsin that went over there looking for a better life during the Depression.
That's right. Not many people know about that.
And they've never been heard from since.
Yeah.
But
If things get too bad, I'm heading up north to Canada.
well, you're going to have to make your stand in this country because Canada, they're already confiscating the guns.
I know, but there's not that many people up there.
Don't worry, when they get those Eastern European soldiers in there with AK-47s, they'll make sure that they control all of North America.
Now, Canada and the U.S. are too big to conquer.
Hopefully, as long as we have the right to keep and bear arms.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to turn in for the night. You guys are doing a heck of a job. You're still #1 above that Monday Night Football in the rankings.
Have you cut off a steak or two off that deer yet?
Oh, yeah. We had shore lunch up there.
Really?
Yep.
Well, that must have tasted good, that fresh deer meat.
Venison and taters and fish.
Huh. That sounds like the way it should be in this country.
Well, nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Well, thanks for calling in there, Bob.
Have a good one. Keep up the good work.
All right, you hang in there and tell your friends to watch.
All right.
Okay, goodbye. He must be from up on the North Shore or something, Freddie. I think he just drives down here to call into our show from time to time to let us know what's going on. Well, before we take this next call, Freddie, what do you got there for a shorty?
Congressman Gunderson says homosexuals are among Dole's closest advisors. And the GOP Senator Bob Dole's closest advisors, he said that some homosexuals are on Senator Dole's staff. Congressman Gunderson's remarks were part of the criticism of Dole in returning a contribution from well-known homosexual group Log Cabin after Dole had solicited the contribution and after the receipt of the contribution had been made public by a Detroit newspaper.
Yeah, something that Bob Dole didn't want to come to light, but he did get his pants caught. Got caught with his pants down in the alley taking money from the sodomite Log Cabin Republicans. I guess Gunderson turned around and said, well, you got homosexuals on your staff now, Dole, so what are you chickening out for?
Right.
But see, Dole's always been wishy-washy like that, Fred. whenever Dole gets caught, he'll jump the other way. He never has been a straight shooter, Fred. He's always been wishy-washy the way the wind blows.
Something also interesting, back in '87, on the eve of Dole's second failed attempt to win the presidency, he was attacked by right-wing activist Phyllis Schlafly for not being a true conservative. Asked how he would respond, he boldly declared that she was right. I don't have my heart in her issues. Besides that, he quipped, a rap from Phyllis Schlafly was probably a plus for his image.
You know something, Fred? We better take a call. But yeah, Phyllis, she doesn't let much of that stuff slide by her, boy. She lets them know where it's at. Okay, Freddie, September 25th, 1804, the 12th Amendment to the Constitution becomes law. This amendment allows for separate votes for president and vice president. And of course, this was the 12th Amendment to the Constitution, and that was September 25th, 1804. This amendment allowed for separate votes for president and vice president. What amendment was that?
That was on voting for president and vice president.
Yeah, but the number.
This is 12.
All right, the 12th Amendment. Okay. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, well, I think you kind of already answered my question, but I guess we could go over it again. Do you think conservatives can trust Bob Dole? And if not, who should we support for president?
Well, I
just looked at the man you should support. That's Pat Buchanan.
Pat's got a long record of being conservative. Goes back to when he worked for President Nixon. Matter of fact, he was part of the old, I don't know if he was personally involved, but he was part of the old, he was the pre-Watergate, one of the pre-Watergate Republicans that worked with the Nixon administration. But Pat's got a long track record of standing up for America first and not shoveling money overseas when we got people sleeping on the streets in this country. He's 100% for the American worker and for taking care of America before we worry about the rest of the world. And I think that's the kind of person we need in office right now. The world is just too big for the United States to take care of almost 6 billion people. If we drop the qualifications, we provided the planes, the boats, the ferries, the automobiles, I guarantee you we'd have 100 million Chinese wanting to get in, 50 million Russians, 20 million Mexicans. We'd be overrun in this country. We can't take care of the world anymore until we take care of our own country first, because this is the last bastion of freedom. We're almost overrun by socialists in this country. If this country collapses, where are you going to go?
You don't think we can trust Dole then?
Bob Dole is, I mean, he's always just been kind of, okay, you caught me, so I won't do it anymore. I'll give the money back kind of a guy. It always seems like he's trying to play three sides at once, and when he gets caught on one or two of the sides, he fesses up to it and gives the money back or whatever, or votes the other way. It's just, I mean, a little bit of pressure and he collapses.
Something you want to keep in mind about Bob Dole. Bob Dole and Phil Gramm and Newt Gingrich voted for NAFTA and voted for GATT. And those two laws that we passed, or treaties, are sending jobs, our jobs, overseas, jobs that we need here.
And that NAFTA vote was a dirty double-crossing shame there. It was voted in by a bunch of lame duckers that had already lost.
And another thing that you got to remember, too, they also voted to support the Clinton giveaway of the money to Mexico.
Uh-huh. Well, what do you guys think of Alan Keyes and Bob Dornan?
Alan Keyes, wonderful man. I don't think he's going to be able to pull it off. Now, he could run as a vice presidential candidate. But whether he will or not, I don't know.
Bob Dornan just isn't going to make it this time around. I think Bob was hoping he'd get a few delegates under his belt to be a player in the smoke-filled rooms at the National Convention. That's much the way Wilson is probably looking at it now. Wilson's going to end up being a regional candidate.
All right.
I think it's going to boil down to Pat Buchanan or nobody. Pat's the only one that's got a shot at it. Phil Gramm used to be a Democrat, and Phil helped put in some pro-abortion people on the Supreme Court. He's voted liberal on several other issues. They
So
tend
you don't trust Phil Gramm then, particularly?
I don't know. I'd have to look at him a little closer and maybe study him a little more, but
What if it came down to Dole or Graham?
I'd probably go for Gramm.
Okay, so you'd still take Graham. So Dole is pretty weak then, you think?
Yeah, I don't think Dole's got it in him anymore. He's 72. I mean, people come to him and say, "Here, we'll give you so much money," and oh yeah, just don't say nothing about it. And then when he gets caught, he jumps the other way. Dole.
Oh yeah, well, I was poor judgment on that log cabin contribution. He never should have taken that.
Well,
He requested it, too. They wrote the letter to them.
it's not the first time Dole has done this kind of thing, though. It's kind of been a trademark of his career, and he used to be what they call the hatchet man or the hit man for the Republican Party. He's the one they would send in to do a number on the opposition. But I think it's going to be if Pat Buchanan can't pull it off, maybe a Graham Buchanan ticket might. You know, if Pat sees the numbers aren't there after the first 4 or 5 primaries, he might start looking for a way to cut a deal with Graham.
You think they could cut a deal?
Yeah, I don't think that Dole and Buchanan will, but Graham maybe.
You know, there's, besides Alan Keyes, you got Maury Taylor, who got 803 votes in that Ames caucus in Iowa. And he doesn't talk about moral issues, but he talks about business issues. And he's right in what he says. I don't know if you've seen him, but he'll be coming on one of these days on this program.
All I can say is with this many candidates out there, it's going to be a humdinger there for several months here into the middle of next summer before they start sorting it out on who's going to be you know, Clinton could end up having some challengers come forward here too on the Democratic side because he doesn't look that strong either.
Yeah, but I don't think any of them would be any good, would they? I mean, you got Gebhardt, he's just terrible, and you got Jesse Jackson, he isn't any good either. So
I personally think that the Democratic Party's in a meltdown. We're almost seeing the beginnings of a one-party system in this country. I don't think we want that, but it doesn't look good for the Democratic Party. They've got Clinton out there that could pull it off maybe if there's a lot of fracturing on the Republican side. But see, when you got this many Republicans out there, you got 10 of them out there running now, and with Forbes in there with his millions, he's going to pull some votes too. Now, what's going to happen after the primaries and after the National Convention? They've only got a couple months to pull it back together. And when you've got 10 or 11 Republican factions going in 10 or 11 different directions, it's very hard to pull them back together and unite to fight a common enemy. And that's what happened. As an example of that, you can look back to when Dave Zine abandoned the 68th Assembly District. 6 Republicans jumped in there after the primary. All 6, the other 5 wouldn't get behind Laufenberg, and Laufenberg lost the race. He should have won it hands down, but he couldn't.
Well, yeah, I think I agree with you there. But well, you think Plombaum's going to run again, or what's going to happen with that?
Yeah, Plombaum's running. He's already running. He's already in the race. He's running.
Can he possibly win again after all the baloney that he's been through?
I saw him speak on Saturday, and he was getting favorable reception from United We Stand people.
Really, but what about the Democratic Party? Are they going to nominate him again after all of his...
Yeah.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
Democrats have no shame. They care less. If he can win, they'll run with him.
What about Laufenberg? Is he going to run again?
I don't know, Fred.
I don't know. I haven't heard from him in months.
No telling. Well, he could very well jump in again, but some people say that they've spent too much money trying to get him to win already, and that maybe it's time for some new Republican blood to go after it.
All right. Well, thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling in. Well, Freddie, you know, I get a monthly magazine called Media Bypass, and the staff of Media Bypass magazine sat down and wrote up 20 questions about the Oklahoma City bombing.
Yes.
They just sat in a circle there at their staffing and said, well, let's just kick this thing around. And they came up with 20 questions that don't add up. I'll read a few of them. If, according to the FBI affidavits, the Oklahoma City bombing was perpetrated by perpetrated as an attack on the BATF offices in the building in retaliation for Waco. Why were no ATF agents or employees killed or seriously injured in the blast?
There were none there.
Okay, another one. Why was Edie Smith, the mother of 2 infant children who died in the bomb blast, visited at her home by ATF agents after she asked this question on live national TV? Smith earlier stated to CNN that she and other victims' family members were told to keep our mouths shut after asking where the BATF was at the time of the explosion. So she got visits and they told her to shut up. Now, she's the redheaded girl who lost 2 of her children that you saw.
Yeah.
She was on CNN, just about every news broadcast out there. And the final question, Fred, is of the 20, well, there's actually 18 more, but number 3 is, why did suspect Timothy McVeigh not draw and fire his pistol at the state trooper when he was stopped? Friends say McVeigh was an excellent pistol shot. After supposedly just setting off the largest terrorist bomb in American history, why did McVeigh cooperate and actually tell the officer he was armed with a concealed weapon? And, you know, they just got them blowing up the building, 160 people killed, several hundred injured, and
well, you know,
without a
there's
fight.
something else that they don't mention, though, is where some of those beams had bombs tied to them inside of the building.
And another question, why did Timothy McVeigh drive away from the crime scene without license plates on his vehicle? That was a pretty stupid move for a guy that's planned this thing for however often he planned it, how long. Well, let's take a call here and see what's going on. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, Chuck, I was wondering if you saw the paper yesterday morning, your favorite local paper here, on our Heart and Soul.
No, what did it say?
There was a fellow here living in town, a transient,
Yeah.
visiting our town, and just wondering if you read the article.
Well, you know, I read parts of it, and
About 3 pages on a transient was going kind of hard.
you know, I got to wondering what was the purpose of this, other than to maybe bring up the plight of alcoholics in this country.
That's what I was wondering.
What did you think of that article, Fred?
I don't know, to be very truthful with you. We do have, I know alcoholics, and some of them were, when they got off the booze, they were pretty good people. But on the booze, they weren't worth the hill of beans.
Well, you know, that's something. We live in the booze state here. Milwaukee is, you know, the Milwaukee, the name of our national pastime team, the Brewers. And we got Leinenkugels and Blatz and Budweiser, not Budweiser, but Millers. And who else we got, Freddie?
I think anything in moderation is one thing, but this fella doesn't even sound like he wants to even try to quit, and it's part of his lifestyle.
Well, alcoholism is a progressive disease, and it continues to pull you down. It pulls you right into the grave, is basically what it does.
When they run it, they don't recognize the problem. They deny it.
Well, actually,
He's admitted the problem, but he enjoys it.
yeah, well, he still hasn't hit bottom. Well, he's on the streets. He doesn't have much to show. He's been arrested over 100 times, but he hasn't hit his bottom yet where he wants to try and pull it back together. And, of course, like I say, alcoholism not only destroys your internal organs and your liver, but it also goes after the brain. And when you start getting, you start actually getting mentally retarded. It destroys brain cells and pretty much pickles your brain.
Yeah.
And an alcoholic can pretty much handle it for maybe about a day without the booze, but then the craving kicks in, and that's why they usually go back to it. And it's very hard to get people off. I worked in a detox center where there was people stumbling in there 500, 600, 700 times in detox. Just in there for a meal, sober up for 24 hours, and back on the streets, panhandling to get drunk again. And that's basically what they wanted out of life.
I'm kind of curious if he's ever supported his daughter. He says he has. Get any support or anything. I don't imagine he's ever been able to afford to do that either.
Well, most alcoholics would like to get off of it, pull themselves together, get a job, and do the right thing, but alcohol is a nasty drug.
Yeah, I know. I was married to one, and sober, she was the most wonderful woman that you'd ever want to meet. But once she started to drink, she turned that around completely.
Unfortunately, the states, and especially the state of Wisconsin, derives a lot of revenue from booze. So on one hand, they're pulling in the tax money. Maybe they need to start taking some of that tax money and make it go directly towards rehabilitation, more anti-alcohol education in the schools, and just make it a little less attractive.
Well, that's what this article seemed to make an attraction to it.
I don't know, sleeping under a bridge.
But he was pretty proud of it.
Sleeping under a bridge and talking about getting your guitar stolen and
I mean, it was pretty awesome.
being in jail 100 times. I don't know how glamorous that would be after a while. Even
Some of these kids read this and thinking, well, maybe this could be for me.
you know, I think the Bible says you'll always have the poor with you, and he's kind of a poor alcoholic, and he's just a drifter. And I think when the Depression hit in the 30s, it kind of created that hobo drifter lifestyle, and we're still dealing with it here in the 90s. There's just a certain segment of society that's going to be that way, and some of them, they don't want to change. That's what they want out of life, but there's nothing really glamorous about it.
And we'll pay the bill for it.
Right.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
works, right?
Yep. Well, thanks for calling in tonight and for bringing your insight to the program. We appreciate it. Okay, Freddie, we got about 1 minute left here. You got a short one there?
Well,
I'm
I
going to
got
take one more call.
Even a new Catholic Alliance is not formally announced, is already drawing attacks from liberal Catholics. John Carr, director of the Department of Social Development and World Peace at the U.S. Catholic Conference, will prove the ideas and Catholics need cohabitation or coalition. And Bishop Walter F. Sullivan, Richmond, Virginia, sent a letter to all priests in the diocese warning not to let the Christian Coalition distribute its voter guide in their churches or recruit parishioners.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air. Yep, we had him, we lost him. Okay, well, we want to thank you for tuning in to tonight's program. I've been your host, Checky Formel, my rusty, trusty sidekick, Fred the Truth Stafford, Director Roy Rogers Hoff. Thank you, and we'll see you again right here
Good night, Chuck Lee.
next week on the Cow Report with
Good night, Chuck Lee.
Checky Formel.
Good night, Chuck Lee.
Adios, amigos, and senoritas.
Yes.
Thank you very much.